The thing that I love so much about credit is that regardless of the position that you may think that you're in right now, you can always bounce back. And I've been doing this for more than half a decade, and I've worked with so many clients in so many different situations. I've seen all different type of scenarios. I've worked with clients that have just come to Canada and they're trying to build their credit. I've worked with clients that may have had once had great credit and then they ruined it, or maybe they had a spouse or a partner they were with that ruined their credit. And then I've had the wealthy clients that may have been in a lawsuit, they've been sued, and that judgment landed on their credit report that was valued at more than millions of dollars on their credit report, and we've had to dispute those things. So don't think that your situation or your scenario that you're dealing with is rare or you're one of one. I mean, at a certain extent, we're all in a special, unique situation as far as our credit is concerned. But we could look at patterns that we could see different situations and we can come to different conclusions with those situations, right? So again, what I'm trying to say is that I've dealt with a lot of clients, I've seen a lot of different situations, and you would be surprised how many different scenarios you can bounce back from. But the most important thing, regardless of what your situation is that you need to have a plan, regardless of what, even if you've been sued for millions of dollars and that judgment is now on your credit report, you need to have a plan. Even if you and your spouse have divorced and they left a auto loan on your credit report that you never were really responsible for, you need to have a plan. What are you going to do? If you had a credit card that maybe you co-signed for your child, whatever it may have been, you need to have a plan to bounce back from that situation. And the thing that I love about credit is that you can always come back. Now, some may say, well, I need to wait the 7 years. Obviously, I don't want you to view it from that standpoint, because what we can do, we can leverage the laws that are available to you as a consumer to help you bounce back a lot sooner than what you may think. And one of those things that we can leverage are inaccuracies. So if you notice accounts or if you notice things on your credit report that are not accurate, we can leverage those things to dispute items off of our credit report. So for example, if I have a Capital One credit card reporting on my credit report and that open date is not accurate or is not the date that I actually opened up that account, then that's something I can leverage to dispute and remove that information off of my credit report. If I see an address that I never lived there before on my credit report, that could possibly be tied to an account that I don't recognize. I can go ahead and start the disputing process to not only remove that address that doesn't belong to me, but also dispute and remove that account that doesn't belong to me as well. As a consumer, there's so many things that you can leverage. And we have to understand here in Canada, it works at a provincial level. So for someone in Quebec, there may be things that protect you differently from someone that is in, let's say, Nova Scotia, right? So we have to be able to look at these things and say, what protects me as a consumer and what is it that I can leverage? Well, there's an umbrella for pretty much everyone in Canada, and that is what we call proof of debt. And if you watch any of my videos, this is something that I religiously talk about. And when we talk about proof of debt, what we're looking for is ownership of the debt. Proof of debt, simply put, is ownership of the debt, even if it's with the original creditor. So a lot of times in my previous videos, I'll talk about it from the standpoint of a collection company, but also the original creditor needs to be willing to provide you with proof of debt. Not proof of debt, not just from the standpoint of ownership or just being able to report the account, but this also falls in the lap of late payments. So let's say, for example, you have a CIBC credit card and there's like 5 late payments on that account. When we're disputing and we're leveraging the fact that there may be unverifiable late payments, then it puts onus onto CIBC to be able to prove to not only us, but to the credit bureaus that those late payments actually existed, actually happened on the date that they're claiming that it happened, right? So again, we can put them to work. And what a lot of people don't realize is that a lot of these companies don't even respond. So and that's not directly to you. So just to walk you through the process, you submit a dispute directly to TransUnion and Equifax concerning the late payments on your CIBC credit card. Now, what's going to happen from that point is that the credit bureaus are going to receive your dispute. They are then going to contact the creditor electronically and request for them to provide proof of your dispute. Okay, so they're gonna say, hey, CIBC, provide us proof negating what this client is saying. Now, from that point, the creditor can do a few things. They can try to stall out the credit bureaus. They can try to provide documentation, or they can completely ignore the credit bureaus. What happens a lot of times, majority of the times, is that that creditor or that collection company is stalling the credit bureaus out, right? And so we have to remember, why is it that they're able to do this? Well, the credit bureaus are getting paid by the creditors. In order for them to report that information onto the credit report, CIBC needs to have an account with Equifax or TransUnion. That's how the information gets reported. That's how they're able to pull that information off. Okay, so they have a contract with these credit bureaus. So a lot of times that's why it seems as if the credit bureaus are kind of leaning or siding with the creditors, because again, that's their client. But they also get paid from you, the consumer, if you're paying the monthly fees to have access to your TransUnion or your Equifax account. Okay, so that creditor, in our example, CIBC, could come and say, "Hey, Equifax, hey, TransUnion, can you give us a little bit more time? We're going to look into this, right?" And so sometimes the credit bureau will come back to you, the consumer, and say, "Well, hey, we're investigating this right now." Right? And so a lot of people would just leave it alone and say, "Well, Equifax said that they're looking into it. They said that they're looking into this for me." But it doesn't actually mean that they're continuing to push against CIBC for them to provide proof that the late payments actually occurred. And so this is a mistake that a lot of people make when they're disputing. They'll submit one dispute and then they'll move on with their lives. They'll go back to their day-to-day. But what we need to do is, once we submit that dispute, we need to give them time. We need to give them those 30 days. But as soon as those 30 business days elapse, what are we doing now? We need to follow up on that dispute, right? And then we need to base our disputes on the responses that we're receiving from the credit bureaus. We need to hold these companies accountable, because if you say that I have late payments on my credit report, I need to see where the late payment is derived from. And it's okay if they're actually able to prove it, right? If they're actually able to prove it and those late payments are valid, that's okay. Work with the creditor, see if they're willing to work with you to remove those late payments, right? See if they're able to do a goodwill removal. But if they cannot provide validation for those late payments or whatever the negative remark is, then the credit bureau is going to do their job and remove the negative remarks. But it doesn't come with you just submitting one dispute. And so this is the mistake that I consistently see with people that are just beginning the process of disputing. And this and also a issue within this is that people are kind of short-minded, in the sense that they believe that, hey, I submitted this dispute, everything should be fixed right away. But the truth is, that's not how that works. And I always tell the clients that I work with is that you need to have a long-term view, because in the reality of the situation, it probably took you years for you to have all of these late payments, have all of these negative derogatory remarks on your credit report, and now you have this expectation to have all of this information removed within one dispute. It's not realistic. Maybe you spent a few dollars on creating the letter, sending it off, and you just expect that information to be removed right away, but that's not how that works. It's a game of consistency. We have to hold the credit bureaus responsible. We have to hold the creditors responsible, because the truth is, there are so many errors. There are so many mistakes. There's a high chance that I can go on anyone's credit report and find an error, find a mistake. The issue is that most people don't know how to find those errors or find those mistakes, right? Because it's important that the open date on your credit card is reporting accurately. If you close an account, it's important that that information is accurate. I see so many situations to where the balances on the accounts are not correct. I see so many situations to where inquiries that clients did not actually inquire for are not supposed to be on their credit report. It's inquiries from companies they never even heard of. You'd be so surprised. Maybe you went to a dealership and you said, "Hey, I have a preferred lender, which is Scotia. I only want you to pull from Scotia," and that dealership agreed that they will only pull from Scotia. And then a month later, you have 10 different inquiries on your credit report, and it doesn't make sense. You're upset because, again, that dealership didn't honor your agreement, and they ran it through a bunch of different lenders. And now you have 10, 15 different new inquiries on your credit report hurting your credit. And now when you go out and apply with someone else, you start to look desperate because it's like, you apply with 10, 15 different lenders and now you're coming to us. And so it's sending a wrong message, right? So we have to know how to spot the inaccuracies, how to dispute, and how to hold the credit bureaus and creditors responsible. Okay, it is your right as a consumer that when you see anything that you don't recognize or you feel as that's invalid, okay, regardless of what we know, if we feel as if something's invalid, we can dispute that information. And as soon as we dispute it, it is up to the credit bureaus and the creditors to come back to us, the consumer, with proof. And until we actually receive that proof, we continue to dispute. Now, you may say, well, what does that look like? What does that proof look like? If it's a collection account and we're requesting for proof of debt or proof of ownership, it is going to be the signed user agreement. So that can come from the collection company or that can come from the creditor. But it needs to be the signed agreement that you signed when you signed off on the agreement. Now, you may say, well, I did an online document. They should have the IP address from when you signed off on that document. That's typically in the fine print. Then when you submit that online application, they're going to hold your IP address to be able to track that back to you, okay? So there's multiple ways that we can prove that that signature was actually yours. So even if you didn't do an in-person signature, let me see the digital document that I signed that also has my IP address. You need to know what to look for. And a lot of people don't know what to look for. If I'm disputing late payments, okay, they need to be able to send me the statements of showing that I have not made any payments to them, okay, on the date that it was due. They need to show statements. A lot of banks will send statements showing that the late payments are actually valid. If it's an inquiry, they need to show the application where I submitted the inquiry to that specific lender. And so you may say, well, they're going to have that paperwork, but let's put things in perspective. We'll go back to our situation with the auto lender, right? You go to that dealership and you say, hey, auto lender, hey, Honda, I am only using Scotia as my preferred lender. Are you okay with using Scotia as my preferred lender? They agree, you sign off on the application with the understanding, but then they go out and they don't stick to that agreement, okay? Now, when we say, hey, I didn't apply with all of these different lenders, all of these different institutions for this one auto loan, okay, there's a few things that we can actually use here. One, you only have one application, so they won't have an application for all of these different lenders, okay? Two, typically the credit bureaus are going to side with you because they're going to see that all of those inquiries happen within the same day and you only have one auto loan, right? So again, this is just you knowing what you can leverage and what you can do. But even if you aren't familiar, it does not hurt you to go ahead and submit a dispute. It is not going to count against you. Your credit score isn't going to drop because you submit a dispute. The creditor isn't going to stop doing business with you because you submit a dispute. There's been plenty of situations to where we disputed accounts for that creditor. Let's say with a CIBC account, we'll just stick with CIBC. Let's say the client disputed a late payment on a CIBC account. The late payment was removed, but CIBC didn't close that person's account. They didn't say, hey, we're not going to do business with you anymore. Right? It's just, again, it's you leveraging what you have as rights as a consumer. So understand these things. Start the disputing process, but we don't only submit one dispute. We stay consistent, right? Because again, you submitting that one dispute, that creditor can just delay the process and knowing that most people are going to give up. But if you continuously dispute over and over again and understand it's going to take a long time, you will be fine. Okay? So again, the whole purpose of this video is just talking about why credit is such a great tool, not only from the investment leverage of, hey, I can leverage capital from the bank to go out and create wealth for myself, but if I have a hard period or hard spot in my life financially, I can always bounce back from it. And disputing is one of those tools that you have in your toolbox. And hopefully you've learned that from this video. If you need help with your credit, maybe you have collection accounts on your credit report and you want to find out ways on how you could dispute those things, or maybe you have a bunch of inquiries that you need help with, you can always send me and my team an email, info@kennyjohnsonuniversity.com, and we will be more than happy to help you out. And until next time, peace.